What's going on, YouTube? This is Boxingwave. Please subscribe to the channel. This is probably the most important fight that I've ever had to cover on this channel. I've been here for 10 years and we've never had an undisputed heavyweight fight. All right, this will be the first in probably over 20 years. Lennox Lewis was the last undisputed heavyweight champion, but this is the first time we're going to get a 4-belt undisputed champion. All the 4 major titles will be on the line this fight. This Saturday coming up, you can watch it on ESPN pay-per-view. You can watch it on the Zone. Whatever you like, whoever, I guess, pay for, whatever commentary you prefer to watch. I mean, if you want the best commentary, be here Saturday. Subscribe to the channel. I will do my commentary this Saturday. But yes, the fight is this Saturday, and I will be here to do live coverage on the fight. This is important because it might not be the 2 most famous guys. You know, you got Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney thing going on, still going on weeks later. People are still arguing about who's at fault. This is the important fight because we need an undisputed heavyweight champion. This is the true king of boxing. That's the way it always was viewed years ago, you know, in the 90s and before then, okay? Since then, Lennox Lewis retired. The Klitschko brothers took over, did their thing, you know, for years, but they never were undisputed because they wouldn't fight each other. Vladimir had the Vladimir had the IBF WBA and the WBO, while Vitaly always had the WBC, and their brothers, they would never fight each other, and we just never got undisputed. But they were clearly the 2 best heavyweights for years. And I think people lost attention in the heavyweight division, but also in boxing, because it started, the popularity of the welterweights and the middleweights and even the light heavyweights grew because those were the big names at that time for the most part. All right, so a lot of people paid attention to the Manny Pacquiao's, the Floyd Mayweathers of the world, and I can name so many other names at that time. And because most of the stars that were most of the top fighters that was at the heavyweight division were Eastern European guys that people weren't that familiar with. People knew of the Klitschko brothers, but people didn't care at that time to watch them in their reign, and they weren't familiar with their opponents. Okay, but since then, there's a lot that's happened. We had the emergence of Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder. All of these guys came through, made it fun again. You know, even if you don't care for them or whatever, way you feel as far as respecting, a lot of the business got involved. Social media happened. YouTube happened. You got me on here giving commentary. So a lot of things, a lot of the dynamics changed in the past decade or so with the emergence of Fury and all these other fighters I just named. And now it made it fun. But also you have to give a lot of credit to Oleksandr Usyk because the cruiserweight division has been dry for many, many, many years, you know, because it was in between light heavy where we had Roy Jones, you had Bernard Hopkins, you had all of these fighters at the light heavyweight, and then you had the Chad Dawsons and all of that. You had all those guys that kept the division, you know, very entertaining. But cruiserweight, you got to give Usyk a great, you know, a lot of credit. Why? Because the World Boxing Super Series happened in that division, and it made it and a lot of fight fans that wasn't really familiar with a lot of these Eastern European fighters, from all of these countries, from the Ukraine, from Poland, all of these countries, they were doing it, they was putting in work, and they were high level fighters. So you got to give credit to Usyk as well. And then now he's been fighting at the heavyweight division at the top level. He's still undefeated. Tyson Fury is still undefeated. And this is how we got here. So let's talk a little bit more about how we got here today with these 2. Okay. We all know, let's start with Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury was a fighter that didn't have a long amateur background. Unlike Usyk, he kind of came in pro very young. All right, he had his knockdowns, he had his close fights. Okay, but there was a period where Tyson Fury started to look elite, and it was shortly before he fought Vladimir Klitschko. At that time, 6'9", guy can switch hitter, It was very elusive, could move really, really well, feinted, and had a defense, was real slick, and people loved him. And I want to say, starting around, in my opinion, my personal opinion, when he was bald and he fought Derek Chisora, those were the years, the second rematch. Thus, at that point, I feel that Tyson Fury was at his peak, but we'll talk more about that later. He fought Derek Chisora, eventually got to Vladimir Klitschko, who at this time was still the reigning top dog. His brother already retired, but we have Vladimir, the top dude in the heavyweight division, and Fury beat Vladimir Klitschko. Unfortunately for Fury, he retired. Okay, after that fight, we didn't get the rematch, and he vacated his titles, and he was out of the game for maybe at least almost 2 years. All right, because he had mental health issues. He was, was using drugs. He was just not in a good place. And at that time, the belt scattered. All right. Wilder, on the other hand, the only belt that Klitschko did not have, Wilder was able to beat Romain Stavern and pick up the WBC. So the other belts that Tyson Fury did have, the IBF, the WBO, the WBA titles, got scattered. And Anthony Joshua eventually picked all three of those titles up, fighting Klitschko, fighting these other fighters, picking up the titles, and he had all three. And at one point, we could have had an undisputed heavyweight fight. And that would have been between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. But because of network issues, promoting issues, he's fighting PBCs over here on Matchroom. He's on DAZN. He's over here on Showtime. All the fans are arguing with each other. We just never got the fight. All right. And these guys went on to lose. All right. Anthony Joshua lost to Andy Ruiz, picked the belt back up in a rematch, won again, but eventually lost to Oleksandr Usyk. And I'll get to his story shortly. In the meantime, Tyson Fury made his return. Eventually came back, had a couple fights, fought Deontay Wilder in the first fight. But there was a trilogy between those two, but they didn't happen in order. Fury fought Wilder, had a controversial draw in their fight. And then at this time, Wilder kept fighting. Fury kept fighting. The pandemic happened. All this stuff happened. But they had their rematch. And in the rematch, Tyson Fury stops Deontay Wilder in the 7th round. Okay, in a fight, in the outcome that nobody saw coming. Even if you thought Tyson Fury was going to win the fight, no one saw Tyson Fury gaining all this weight, joining Sugar Hill, working on the right hand, looking to knock out Wilder because he was motivated. At this point, he was so motivated. He was so upset that he had to draw on his record that he wanted to go in there and stop Deontay Wilder. Is what he did in the second and then in the third fight. Okay, so Fury stops Wilder in both fights. Classic third fight, back and forth. Both got knocked down. Both got dropped in the third fight. Now Fury is officially WBC champ. Now he's had some fights in between. He's had some fights since then. And then, we got here where we're at now. Usyk, on the other hand, his story, phenomenal amateur background. And people don't forget, not only is a gold Olympic medalist, all right, he's fought some of the best fighters in the world, some of the best guys, Arthur Beterbiev, Joe Joyce. He even fought Sean Porter as an amateur, right? Had a bunch of fights as an amateur, phenomenal amateur, and people tend to forget the World Series of Boxing, where he's like a semi-pro type of amateur fight, where it's not pro fight, officially pro, but they're really pro fights, no headgears, no none of that. These are pro long round type of fights. So he had those fights. So he's been fighting at a pro level for a long time, even before going pro. And it didn't take long for him to fight the very best as a pro. A lot of these cruiserweights that were undefeated, he went through them all, even before the World Boxing Super Series tournament. All right, where he had to fight the rest of the best. But before then, fighting Krzysztof Glowacki, Michael Hunter, Marco Huck, who was one of the top cruiserweights before that time. So he had to run through these guys, and then he had to go into the tournament and fight the Mary's Breedeses of the world, the Muragassias of the world. So, and then he eventually fought Tony Bellew before moving up. So Oleksandr Usyk became undisputed as a cruiserweight, and he's going down historically as one of the best cruiserweights ever. And Vander Holyfield is the only one that's debatably, better. So Usyk decides to finally move up to heavyweight, and he starts chipping away. Had the Chaz Witherspoon fight, which was a tune-up. He had an injury, so he came in, had a tune-up fight. Then he fought Jared Chisora, which was one of his toughest fights because Chisora was so much bigger than him, and Chisora was so aggressive against a smaller Usyk, coming in, switching, fighting completely unorthodox against Usyk, but Usyk passed. But Usyk finally got his championship opportunity against Anthony Joshua, who at this time he was on a rebuilding stage, but he was already unified 3-belt title holder, WBA, WBO, IBF, and Usyk beat him in the first fight, and he went on to beat Joshua again in a rematch. And now we're pretty much here. Usyk did have one fight with with Daniel Dubois last year, okay, which was one of his mandatories from one of his titles. And now we are here with Tyson Fury. Now there's been some delays. There's been some unneeded fights. We almost missed out on this undisputed fight because when you are a unified champion, especially when you're holding not just 2 but 3 titles, there are going to be mandatory obligations that come into play. And fortunately, outside of Daniel Dubois, Usyk only had to fight and defend the titles against him while waiting to get the shot at Fury. Fury did not want this fight. He said it for years. He didn't care for this fight, and he's had other opportunities. After beating Deontay Wilder, the trilogy was over. Okay, he's had other fights. He fought Dillian White. He's fought Derek Chisora. He fought Francis Ngannou, an MMA fighter who had his first pro fight against Tyson Fury. Okay, fights that occurred while Usyk was the unified champion at heavyweight. At least Derek Chisora and Francis Ngannou happened while Usyk wanted the fight and wanted to fight for Undisputed. And I understand the fight is bigger now. Saudi Arabia is fully involved. And now the money is way bigger now than it was back in 2022. But at least we're getting it now. I'm happy with getting it now. We still had more delays. Fury had a tough fight against Francis Ngannou. Couldn't fight him in December. And then he was supposed to fight him earlier this year, but he suffered a cut while sparring. And it was delayed again. And now they are finally fighting this weekend. And this is how we got here. All right. Oh, all right. Let me take a water break and we'll get to the next part. All right. Tyson Fury. When I think of him, one of the most athletic fighters, you look at him, he's 6'9". He has a funny shape, funny figure, big waist, big arms. He's not a bodybuilder. He doesn't look like AJ. He doesn't look like Francis Ngannou. He doesn't look like the heavyweights from the 90s. Okay, he doesn't look like Vladimir Klitschko. He doesn't look like any of those guys. But the guy's always been smooth. He's always been smooth. He's always been fun to watch. He can switch. He can fight as a southpaw and look good doing it. Naturally, he's an orthodox fighter. He's better as an orthodox fighter, but he fights very well as a southpaw. Okay, and he moves extremely well. He's taking full advantage of all of these big, slow, clunky, robotic heavyweights that he's fought over the years. He had the IQ, he had the defense. He was so unorthodox. Plus, from a technical standpoint, he's feinting, he's changing levels. Long arms, extremely long arms, but fights so well on the inside. And then he just knows how to take advantage of his opponents by smothering their offense at the same time while taunting them. So Fury, IQ wise, and also having a will to win. I mentioned earlier that he's been knocked down in some of his early fights. He got knocked down 4 times by Deontay Wilder and that trilogy that they had, but he always had the will to win the fight, no matter how close it was. Even if he was down, he still had to win, and he always came back and won a lot of these, or all of these fights, because he's undefeated, right? He is 34 wins with 24 knockouts, only 1 draw with Deontay Wilder. So he has always found a way to fight through it. And both of these guys, I didn't even mention, both of these guys are up there in age. Fury is 35 years old now. He's 35 years old. And Usyk is 37 years old. All right, Usyk got 21 wins, 14 knockouts with no draws, no defeats. All right. So both of these guys, the time is now. And this fight is important because this, in my opinion, and I wanted to start out by saying this is important because it answers the question, at least at this time. Again, more fights could happen. We didn't get Fury and AJ. But this answers for me who was the baddest man of this generation, this last decade or so. Who is the best heavyweight of this time? We know Vladimir or Vitaly was the best. We know Lewis and Vander and Bo and all those guys, Tyson, all those guys from back in the 90s. But we don't really know who's the best. And for me, it will answer the question on who's the best at this time of this era of heavyweights. Who's the best? We got the next class and crop of fighters who's already been involved in the ring with some of these fighters. But this will answer the best of who it is. And Tyson Fury has looked to be the top guy over the years. You can make arguments on who has better resumes between him and Usyk and Anthony Joshua, but Undisputed beating Oleksandr Usyk, if he is going to win this Saturday, if he is to win, would answer the question on who's truly the king at heavyweight all these years. Because everybody's lost. Everybody else has lost except these two. And almost everybody fought each other. Almost everybody. Obviously, Wilder never fought Usyk. He never fought Anthony Joshua. Obviously, Anthony Joshua's never fought Tyson Fury, but it would answer the question on who's back. But Tyson Fury's style is based on being slick, being able to be so unorthodox, move so well in the ring, and he can do it all. And plus, we've seen him make adjustments. We've seen him make adjustments before the fight and changing his weight and his style. Because in my personal opinion, like I said earlier, the best Tyson Fury I've ever seen was against Vladimir Klitschko, when he was switching too quick, moved too well, just hard to hit. You just can't really get to him clean that much. Because even when you were on the inside and when you were in range to land a good shot, he would smother your punches. He would tie you up. He would lean on you. He would do all of these things. And even in the Derek Chisora 2 fight, the rematch years ago, 10 years ago now, Derek Chisora was being so aggressive. He was better fit. He was younger, being so aggressive, but he just couldn't get to Tyson. Tyson was just easily just displaying some great technique and on a guy that was coming straight at him. Obviously, Usyk fought. Derek Chisora had a much rougher time in that common opponent because he fought a much bigger guy at that time that Usyk just didn't have the power to really fend off until he got tired, in the second half of that fight. And we'll get more to that. But Tyson Fury at that time was his best. But when he retired and came back leading up to the Deontay Wilder fight, he didn't quite look the same in those first couple fights. And then when he fought Wilder, yes, surprisingly, he came in at a lower weight. He looked sharper. He was boxing. He looked more like himself in that Wilder fight. But he didn't quite give me that same magic that he had in those earlier fights, like Chisora and Klitschko before retirement. But he did good. And It was a controversial draw. I think he won more rounds. I think he did enough to edge a decision against Wilder, but they ruled it a draw, and he was knocked down twice in that fight. All right. So Fury has always had the skills to outbox everyone, even when it was close. But then he changed his style a little bit when he fought Wilder in that rematch. He came in a lot heavier. So he wasn't nearly as elusive before. He was taking some right hands, but he was absorbing the punches better. All right. And he was working on being a bigger man. Like, I'm not 6'9" and 240s, 250s anymore. Now I'm 6'9" and the 270s now. Now I'm walking you down, and now I'm sitting down on the punches. Not as many jabs. Is he moving as well? No. Is he slipping the punches as well? No. Is he getting low as low? And is he defensive as sharp defensively? No, he wasn't that. But he accomplished the assignment when he fought Deontay Wilder. Problem is with Fury, and I think he kept going at this heavier weight, and it didn't look so good against other opponents. All right. He fought Francis Ngannou in his last match, and I know a lot of people feel that he came in overweight and he wasn't motivated to win the fight. I think two things can be true. I think that Fury was bigger, and I don't think he expected Francis to be that good, or as good as he was. Let me say that. But I also believe that Fury being heavy and not having the defense and stuff, it made him slower. It made him easier to hit. He moved a lot less. He just wasn't able to get away. And plus, you're fighting a very strong MMA guy that can wrestle, clinches differently than you. You're not used to it. And now you are not using, you're bigger as far as height and weight. But this guy is physically a strong bodybuilder type of guy. He's throwing them off you. And I think a lot of those things with the quickness, the surprisingly quickness of Francis Ngannou, we got no film to go by. None. We watch MMA fights. We have no idea as Francis. So I think two things can be right. Maybe Fury was a little less motivated, but Fury also might have had a worse game plan. Maybe Fury being a little lighter, a little quicker for that fight, even though he wasn't for Wilder, maybe he needed to be lighter for that fight. Also, we have to mention the Otto Wallin fight. And it's very important, and it's a key for a lot of film study that I had to do. I had to go back to that fight so many times because Otto Wallin is a southpaw, and he's the closest being to Usyk. Not nearly on Usyk's level by any means, but this is a guy that gave Fury problems. Before all of the weight jump, he was in shape, but Wallin was able to cut him bad, a stoppable cuttage. All right, that a stoppable cut that didn't fight was obviously not stopping. Fury did win, but Fury looked sloppy. He looked bad, and he pulled it out, and he won a lot of those rounds after the cut. But did he look as good as we've seen him? A lot of people feel like when Fury's motivated, he's this, he's that, and I agree with that. But there was a lot of fights that Fury had that you can make an argument he wasn't motivated for. And that fight there, he was in shape. He looked good, but he fought a guy that had a good game plan. He was a southpaw. He was able to land a left hand at will without all of the jumping around and all the movement that Usyk does. He was able to do it consistently and give him a bad cut. Fury won the fight. So that's an important key going into this fight here. Now, Oleksandr Usyk, on the other hand, let's skip straight to heavyweight. Let's not even go into like his amateur pedigree and stuff. Usyk is a fighter that is all like boxing IQ, not just the boxing IQ, but athleticism. Athleticism is top notch. All right, his engine, his stamina, the way he fights is when you don't want to fight anymore. He's at his best. You could go to the Glowacki fight. You could go to the Breeders fight. You could go to the Bellew fight. You can even go to the Gisora fight, the Anthony Joshua fight. You can go to any fight in there, Michael Hunter. Any fight. Everybody's having success early. All of them seem to be doing the right things, but the problem is when you don't want to fight no more and you have emptied out the gas tank just to stay in the fight, just to make it even in the first half, you already let everything go, and this guy is just warming up. That is his greatest strength going into any fight. And even at 37 years old, you have to remember this guy is always fighting at 220, roughly around. All right, he's never over 221. Even as a heavyweight, 217 to 221, he's always in shape. He's always in fight. He never completely lets himself go. The only time I felt that he looked appearance-wise looked a little different is when the war in Ukraine was happening. And I've seen him give an interview where he didn't look that well, but he didn't have ups and downs and fallbacks in his career. All right, he's had some injuries, but for the most part, he's been consistent, and he's an athlete. The guy can dance, he can move his legs like crazy. We know Fury is a phenomenal mover, but Usyk is a smaller guy that moves even better than him. And his punch output is much higher. He is a one of the best technical pressure fighters in the world. And in my opinion, he's been a top 3 pound for pound fighters for years, at least since he's been undisputed. I've had him at number 3 for many years now. All right. So Usyk is, as far as outside of his athleticism and his IQ, you got to also look at his style, his lead hand. He's doing so much with the lead hand. He's always active. If he's not throwing a jab, he's trying to hypnotize you. He's doing everything with that lead hand to confuse you. He is a southpaw, so he's doing everything with the lead hand. On top of that, he is moving. He is shifting his body. He is changing levels. All right. He is changing directions, and he has a sweet spot that he likes to be. He likes to be, whether you're orthodox or whether you're southpaw, his sweet spot, his favorite spot that I think he likes to be in is right outside of your lead hand, right in the shoulder area, where if you are an orthodox fighter like Tony Bellew, where you like to throw the right hand and you like to jab, he wants to be on the outside of your jab. He wants to be over here, because he can create angles that way. Not only can he throw his jab, but he could come around with the left hook that you don't see because it's over here. And the same when he fights an orthodox fighter. I had to go back. I had to do a massive amount of film study to make this breakdown because it's such an important fight. But I had to go back to watching the Krzysztof Glowacki fight because you never know. Tyson Fury might fight a half of this fight as a southpaw because this guy Usyk has not fought a southpaw since Mchunu and Glowacki back in 2016. He hasn't fought a legit southpaw. You fought guys like Chisora that switched a little bit, but all of these guys, some of the best fighters he's faced, like Breedis, like Hunter, these guys, Gassiev, all these guys, Tony Bellew, these guys are all orthodox fighters, including AJ. So with that being said, same goes with him. When he fights a southpaw, where does he wants to be? When he's fighting them, he wants to be on the outside of that lead hand. All right. And in that instance, he would go to his left and create those angles, especially when you slow down. And now he can throw his flurries. So he's a guy that doesn't necessarily stand in front of you, and I think that's his greatest strength. He's constantly moving to the left, to the right, whatever you're doing, he's trying to work around it so he can throw his flurries, especially when you're tired and you don't really want to fight anymore at a high level. At this point, you're just playing defense, and that's when most of his opponents, if not all, are in the most trouble when they're forced to play defense because now you're being overwhelmed by a flurry of punches. Okay, and that's Usyk's style. All right. So this is my prediction. Okay. Some of the things are going to be very controversial, but I'm confident in my pick. I understand that Fury is the guy that everybody wants to win because there's a bigger fight left ahead, and that's Anthony Joshua. Okay? Everybody wants that. I've heard the promoters, all the people, Turkey Alashi, everybody wants to make that fight. AJ Fury. AJ's got a lot of momentum, knocking out Francis Ngannou. One of the craziest knockouts we've seen in recent years. Okay? And also beating the hell at the out the wall in the same southpaw that Fury had all of this trouble with. So I understand the momentum in going into that fight. But I'm going to be very fair. And I understand that when it comes to the judges, a lot of people like to make the argument like, what if the fight is close? They're not going to give it to Usyk. You know, this is kind of a prediction I had back when Bivol fought Canelo Alvarez. I said, I think Bivol can beat Canelo on the cards. But I think it won't be close enough to give him a decision. And that's part of the reason why I picked wrong and I picked the wrong guy. Bivol did more than enough to clearly win that fight, even if the judges had it closer than what they should have been. Fury, to me, I think he has the tools to beat Usyk. I think he does. He can switch. He has the size, he has a long jab, he has the right hand. When I look at Usyk and where he struggled, I like to look at the Tony Bellew fight the most and the Maurice Briedis fight. Maurice Briedis, to me, and this is the controversial part. When I look at Briedis, Hunter, Glowacki, Bellew even, I just feel like because they're not as known and because they're cruiserweights, I think that people underestimate Usyk's resume. That guy fought tough fighters all the time. Since Glowacki fight, it's never been an easy fight. Inchunum wasn't easy. Hunter wasn't easy. Hook wasn't easy. Briedis, Gassiev, Bellew. Chaz Witherspoon is the only official tune-up that Usyk has had. These fighters, to me, are more skilled than the fighters that Fury has fought. I know Wilder is more famous. I know he knocked a lot of people out. I know, Dillian White, very successful, very, very successful heavyweight. Definitely far from his prime by the time Fury got to him. So was Derek Chisora. Francis Ngannou had no fighting experience. Wilder, always overrated to me as far as a technical fighter. As far as a boxer and his ability, always overrated. Otto Wallin is a quarter of what Usyk is. I can just go down this list, and I just don't feel that outside of Vladimir Klitschko, he's for a really good, skilled boxer. I have to go that far back. And that Tyson version of Tyson Fury is not there. And I know that Tyson Fury has lost all this weight. I've seen it. I've seen him. I've seen all the videos. He looks good. He looks in shape. He might even be very light. He might be in his 250s again. He might be in the 240s. But Tyson Fury has not been consistent with his resume and his opposition. He has not been consistent with weight. He has not been dedicated to the sport like this guy. He has not even wanted this fight. He said things that he doesn't care for Undisputed. He's barked and talked more about being the lineal champion more than anything else. He's never cared for this. He's not hungry for this. I think Tyson's motivation is winning and money. Winning by any means necessary is great motivation. This is the guy that got out when Wilder basically laid him out. So I give him a lot of credit. Even in the trilogy fight, I give him a lot of credit. He has a win. He is a Fury. He has all the heart. But Usyk has that too. Usyk's always had that. Usyk from day one wanted the moment he stepped up to heavyweight, he has wanted to fight for Undisputed, and he's been through much more, especially with everything that's happened with his country. So from a mental standpoint, I have to give it to Usyk. He's wanted this fight more. There's been no delays with him. He's been chasing this guy since day when he would have fought Fury 2 years ago if he could. Fury, on the other hand, fought Chisora for a third time when no one asked for it. He's fought Francis Ngannou, an MMA fighter, looked very poor in the fight. He's been unmotivated, and even if he's in his best shape today, when's the last time he's been in that shape? Just because you're motivated today, you went so many years without being that motivated. The last time Fury was motivated is when he fought Wilder in a rematch. And he was a completely different build at that time, in a completely different type of fight. Now, will Fury be at his best? I expect him to be at his current best. Okay? I expect Fury to start out pretty good. He's going to have his jab. He's going to be throwing right hands to the body. All right? Because according to everyone, that is the weak spot of Oleksandr Usyk because of the Daniel Dubois performance. Because they went back to fighting, watching this fight with Arthur Beterbiev, dropped him to the body. You know, he's had issues getting hit to the body with other fights. But if you watch this guy's fight, he's been getting hit to the body for years. For years. By heavyweights that are KO artists like Triple D and Anthony Joshua. He's been getting hit to the body since Marius Briedis. Do you guys watch these fights? Glowatsky, all of these guys for years have been hitting Usyk to the body. So Tyson Fury can have that game plan, but he's going to need more than that. And you're fighting a guy that's older than you, but is more athletic than you. He's doing a lot more than anybody that Tyson Fury has faced. Everybody Fury has faced has been stationary, coming forward, doing a big right hand, you know, just being aggressive. He's tied them up. He's leaned on them. But when we watch fights like, you know, Otto Wallin, and we even watch a fight in his fight against the MMA guy, Francis Ngannou, me getting dropped by him, me getting hit continuously by him. No, you just don't wake up overnight and decide that you want to be serious. And even if you mentally want to be serious because you know that this is your toughest challenge, which I believe it is, does your body feel that same way at 35? 35 without being really tested. 35 without staying sharp. Usyk was sharp all of these years. Top comp all of these years. Witherspoon was the only true tune-up. All those guys are cruiserweight, more talented. All of them. Damn near all of them. They're just smaller. But you're the smaller guy. But you being smaller is an advantage because heavyweights are not high volume unless they're on the juice like Gerald Miller. They're not high volume. So you can work around that. You can work around the fact that Fury has looked lazy in his fights and has been on the defensive end in a lot of these fights. You know, the only time I seen him, again, outside of the Wilder rematch, was when Otto Wallin had him cut and they were thinking about stopping the fight. And he was forced. He was forced to have to work. Whereas Usyk outworks everybody. Everybody beats him in the second half. Loses in the second half of this guy. And when you don't want to fight no more, and when you're tired, no matter how well you're doing, you're gonna be at a point where you're playing defense against a smaller guy. On top of that, because you lost so much weight, like I said earlier, how do you know your body? because you have not consistently fought at this weight, how do you know your body at 35 is going to be able to do it? I'll take the guy that's 2 years older, that has fought in shape and stayed in shape. There were no ups and downs throughout his entire career, over the guy that decided today that he wants to prepare for a fight. I have Usyk winning this fight by decision. I think Usyk is going to start out faster. I think Usyk understands that the odds are against him. He is not the bigger star, and plus he's already beaten AJ. So he understands the assignment. I believe he does. And I think he's going to go in there and he's going to start out faster, and the momentum is going to never leave. When Fury slows down, because he will, Usyk is going to take over. In this fight, he's going to clear out in the second half. Because I've seen Wallin fight Fury. I've seen how easy those left hands can land without the angles. I'm just talking about a fighter that stood right in front of him and was able to land at will without the angles. You saw what happened when Wallin went in there with a real boxer in AJ. AJ couldn't do that to Usyk, but he did it against Wallin. Fury's going to have a rough night. I got him losing. I understand that he's a star, but Usyk's going to win this fight. I already put my money down, and I have nothing else to say, man. See you guys Saturday. Hope you enjoyed the breakdown. I can't wait. And subscribe to the channel, smash the like button, share the video if you could, and I'll see you later. Have a good one. Peace.